This is the OPPO Reno8 Pro, the predecessor to the popular Reno7 Pro from last year. As we know, OPPO's Reno series has always been focused on phones with stylish designs and good camera system for daily snapshots. And the Reno8 Pro is no different. So for a price around $575, is the OPPO Reno8 Pro any good? Let's find out. Let's begin with the design language of this phone. Right off the bat, we see a glossy black that is extremely reflective, and it almost feels like I'm holding an actual mirror in front of me. When we look closely, we see that the back of the phone has a similar design pattern to the Find X5 Pro, where the whole back is made from a single glass panel, and the gradual transition from the back to the camera module makes the camera bump less noticeable, while creating a streamlined unibody look. I think this design looks quite slick. As for the camera module, we also see a dual ring design, which is very popular in 2022. I will get to that when talking about the camera performance. As for colors, we've got glazed green and glazed black. And the black color does make the phone feel more like a mirror. Also, the device is 7.34mm thick and weighs around 183 grams. Moving on to the front of the phone, let's talk about the main display. The Reno8 Pro has a 6.7-inch AMOLED display with a maximum 120Hz refresh rate and a resolution of 2412 by 1080, which is an overall good 1080p display. As for the 120Hz refresh rate, it does create a smoother and better user experience, especially when scrolling through apps or web pages. Next, let's talk about the two big rings on the back of the phone. As for the camera specs, we have a 50-megapixel main camera, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 2-megapixel macro camera, as well as a 32-megapixel front-facing selfie camera. So it's clear that the Reno8 Pro has more emphasis on the main camera in comparison to the rest. And this aligns with the purpose of the Reno series, which is to have a camera system good enough for daily snapshots. So let's see how the camera module performs by doing a slightly unfair ultimate test, by comparing it to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. For daytime exterior shots, both phones produce equally sharp images, but the iPhone looks more punchy while the Reno8 Pro looks brighter but has less contrast. As for interior shots, we can see that the iPhone can see and capture more details than the Reno8 Pro. As we can see on the IMAX sign, there are more details being captured by the iPhone. As for food photography, I think both phones produce similar results with a slightly different color signs to them. While the iPhone does look punchy and sharp in most cases, sometimes it just looks a little bit too much. As we can see here, the Reno8 Pro produces a well-balanced, natural-looking image, while the iPhone just looks very artificial and overly sharpened. As for the ultra-wide, it just cannot compare with the iPhone, since the ultra-wide is not the focus of the Reno8 Pro in the first place, and we do get less sharp images when using the ultra-wide camera. Moving on to nighttime photography, this is where the overall comparison starts to get interesting. Remember the Mirror Silicon X imaging NPU from the Find X5 Pro? Well, it's here on the Reno8 Pro as well. So let's see how the comparison turns out with the help of the Mirror Silicon X. At first, it seems like both phones can capture beautiful sunset shots. However, as the environment gets darker with artificial lights kicking in, the Reno8 Pro starts to unleash its true powers. In this comparison, we can see that the Reno8 Pro starts to produce sharper images with better highlight retentions than the iPhone. And for scenes with a lot of contrast, the iPhone has all the highlights blown out while the Reno8 Pro still manages to retain the highlight data. However, this does not mean that the Reno8 Pro can crush the iPhone in nighttime photography. Sometimes, both of them produce very similar images, and sometimes the iPhone just seems to have a better sense of white balance. Most importantly, both of them suck at reducing flares and ghostings. As for videos, the Mirror Silicon X does allow the Reno8 Pro to shoot better nighttime videos in 4K at 30 frames per second. So what's our takeaway? I'd say that the iPhone has a better imaging system than the Reno8 Pro, which totally makes sense since it is the Pro Max. However, as you have seen, the differences are not that drastic for the main camera, and the Reno8 Pro even turns the table in nighttime photography. which makes it a pretty competitive opponent in terms of daily casual smartphone photography. Next, let's talk about performance and battery. Inside, we have a 5nm MediaTek Dimensity 8100 Max chipset with 8 to 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage space. As for the performance, if you are just scrolling through social media and taking pictures, then performance won't be a problem. As for gaming, playing Genshin Impact is kind of okay on this phone. You just have to turn down some of the graphics settings to make it run smoothly. For any games that are less intense, the phone should handle them pretty well. As for the battery, we have a pretty standard 4500 mAh battery that supports OPPO's 80W Super VOOC fast charge, and an 8 to 10 minute charge will get you 50% charge. So this is the Reno 8 Pro, a stylish phone with internals and camera system that is enough for your daily use. And I see it as a worthy contender in today's smartphone market. However, if you're not satisfied with the performance or the camera system, then you can check the Find X5 Pro review here. For tech and gadgets, we got you covered, and I will see you next time.